focusing on in terms of reform is community control. Ohio has one of the largest populations in the country of people who are on probation and parole. We also have a very diverse, sometimes chaotic system. We have one of the largest number of offices in the state because we don't have a unified system. So if you look, many counties, many municipalities all have their own offices of probation. And so what we have found is that for many people who have been in the criminal justice system, you may be on probation in Columbus, and then you may also be on probation through the Reynoldsburg court, and also maybe through the Gahanna court. And if you are a resident here and you're coming out of prison or jail, you might have to report to all three of those municipalities for probation, all which may have different requirements, all which may require you to report once a week. And so for many people who are low income, who are barely making it in society, having to travel by bus, having to report to many different probation officers, it is a recipe for them to fail. And so we must change the system so that there is a more unified system, so that we are not giving people several masters to set them up for a failure, but that we have very clear expectations from one entity about what they are supposed to be doing on community control, and that we are not giving people multiple orders from multiple different areas and multiple different jurisdictions. We are also pushing for changes to the parole system that we have seen, where the number of people who are paroled from our state prison system has drastically decreased over the last decade, much due to truth in sentencing, or the determinate sentencing that was passed several years ago. Stephen and the Ohio Justice and Policy Center has really specialized in this area, is going to talk more about this, but we are especially calling for more transparency and greater leniency in terms of granting parole to these individuals. That we know, yes, we need to get people who are not served by prison out of prison, so the people who are low-level drug offenders and alcohol, people with alcohol addictions, but we also need to get the people who have been served by the prison, the people who have been rehabilitated, who have done their time. We also need to get them out of prison as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kari, who's going to give a few remarks on behalf of the public defenders. Thank you.
Good morning. And I'd like to start by thanking the ACLU and OJPC for inviting OPD here today, and also for this very, very comprehensive and great report. I realize comprehensive is in the title of the report, but I can't impress upon you enough how true that is. Working in the criminal justice reform world, we often are approached with single ideas in a single stream of thought, with one goal and through one method of achieving that goal. And this plan and this report looks at them all and talks about how they are all achievable. And not only are they all achievable, but they're all necessary and they all go together. As you heard, my office is involved in the Recodification Committee. Our director, Tim Young, is the vice chair, and we have another member as well. And working with that committee has been a really great experience. It has brought all kinds of people from around the state together to work towards the common goal of reforming criminal justice for Ohioans. I'm happy to say that we've been working for several months, and there's been a lot of progress towards creating a more unified and consistent and coherent criminal code for all of us as professionals to use, and for the citizens of Ohio to understand. I think that is one of the biggest goals of the committee, and hopefully that's our biggest achievement, is that we have a product that comes out that people understand what the laws are, what's expected of them, and what's not expected of them. You've heard a lot about mass incarceration and about the incarceration numbers in our state and how overpopulated our Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections is. And I'd ask you to think about that a little bit. I'm afraid that at times that becomes the highlight of why we are having a focus on criminal justice reform right now. But I'd ask you to think about it in a different way. The reform that we are after, and I say we as professionals in this world, whether it's defense attorneys, judges, policymakers, or elected officials, the reason that we are working towards this reform is because the people in our state deserve better. And when we achieve the reform, the incarceration numbers will necessarily go down. So while the over-incarceration and mass incarceration of our citizens is happening and has been happening and has not been helped for a really long time, I'd ask you to also think about the reasons that that has happened and the reform that is necessary to help those numbers go down. So rather than looking at how do we get less people in prison, we're looking at how do we make things more fair? Because by making things more fair, we will have less people in prison. We heard a lot about earlier, which really strikes me, what we're using our prisons for. Right now, we have an overrepresentation of mental health, people with mental health needs, people with addiction needs, and people with other socioeconomic or personal needs that lead them to prison instead of their criminal behavior. They might be related, they might be correlated, but eventually we use our prisons to house those people. And that is a critical part of criminal justice reform. That is happening in the Recodification Committee some, but I submit to you that we have to find reform for those people elsewhere. We have to find more attention, more services, and more recognition of those issues outside of our criminal justice system. Looking more at this plan, the thing that it did for me was to help me understand, as I said earlier, that all of these different issues go together. Everything from a pretrial arrest, a pretrial incarceration in a county jail, all the way through conviction, commitment to the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, post-release control, and parole. All of those issues go together in our state. And all of them impact everyone. And that's why I cannot praise this plan and this report enough for highlighting those issues and for showing them to us and to me in plain language how they go together and how we can fix them.